This is Rhonda Rawlings, News and Community Affairs Director for 107.3 JAMS, and I have the pleasure to be in Columbia today at the State House in the office of Governor Mark Sanford. How are you?
I'm good.
Doing great, okay. Now, Governor, as I look around the room, you have so many mementos and different things from your time in office. What are your thoughts now that it's the final 2 weeks of your tenure?
Well, I think that it's a little bit of a trip or a journey down sentimental lane. You think about 8 years, it's a relatively big chunk of your life. You think about 2 years of a campaign in front of that. I mean, you're really talking about a 10-year portion of one's life. It's had ups, it's had well-chronicled downs, it's had a lot of things in between. But the net of the experiences, it's been tremendously humbling to serve as governor. So, as a consequence, a whole lot of sentiment as different people have come by for a last goodbye. Just a moment ago, having people come by for a picture they wanted to catch before I left office. And so it's been a remarkable journey, and parts of it I'll miss and parts of it I won't. That's the nature of life.
Wow, okay. Now, you were a media darling and a darling of the Republican Party, and as we know, you've had some trials and tribulations over the last year or so. I've heard you say that you have few regrets, but one of the regrets was that maybe you let out too much information. Is that what you think? Or would you do anything differently?
Of course you would. I mean, the nature of, for me, it's been sort of a lesson in my own humanity. And I think the nature of life is that you're going to have some days when you do really, really well. You're going to surpass your wildest expectation in terms of how well you perform. And other days you're going to, disappoint yourself, you're going to disappoint those you love, you're going to disappoint your God. And you wish you could take back those days, but the reality of life is you can't. And so, tragically, part of the human experience is that we're going to make mistakes, we're going to do things we're going to regret. And you wish you could erase them, but you can't. And so the key, I think, to life is, one, to accept grace, both God's grace and the grace of others. To accept this larger notion of forgiveness, which is fundamental to every faith that's out there. And most importantly, in terms of, that which we've got to do while here on earth is to get up that next day and to put one foot in front of the other and to try and press on. Because whether in the business world, whether in our personal lives, whether in the world of politics, you name it, we're all going to make mistakes, things that we regret. And I think the important part is, what do you learn from it? And how do you step forward in that next day, and the day after that, and the day after that? And what we tried to do here over these last 18 months, because I came very close to resigning a number of different times. And friends told me, no, Mark, you're not going to be judged on your best day, you're not going to be judged on your worst day. You're going to be judged on the entirety of how you did. And therefore, you go out and you finish strong. And that's what we tried to do. And some amazingly good things happened for people and taxpayers in the state, whether it was the most vetoes we'd ever been able to sustain in the entire 8 years we're in this last session. Most investment we've ever been able to garner here in this last year. Largest single investment in South Carolina's history in this last year. Sentencing reform bill, which I think was a very, very important to the larger notion of true justice in our criminal justice system. We'd worked on 8 years ago, finally passes in this last year. The Employment Security Commission reform that would help both the business environment of the state and the people who needed help when times are down passed here in this last year. So I think that the larger lesson for me at a personal level, and I think that hopefully for all of us, is that we got to press through any of the fires, whether they're self-induced or based on the circumstances of life, because that larger notion of pressing on and persistence is really important to us making the most of the time we have here on earth.
Good point. And you have had some remarkable successes over the last year. And as a matter of fact, one opinion poll shows you with a 70% approval rating.
Again, and I go back to the grace of people in the state. There is a reservoir of grace that I never knew existed before really this experience of 18 months ago for me. And you'd be walking down the street, some small town, somebody would come up and they'd give you a hug and they'd say, I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you, or thinking about you and your family, whatever it might have been. And there is a remarkable capacity for grace. And I think that there was once a movie about passing it forward. I don't remember the name of the movie. But I think it becomes incumbent upon any of us who've experienced grace to look for ways of indeed passing it to others.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for taking out the time with us today. What can we expect from you in the future? Will we still see you around South Carolina, or what are your plans?
I mean, the beauty of South Carolina is the dots always reconnect. It's never goodbye. It's always I'll see you in a little bit. We're a relatively small state, and so inevitably the dots do reconnect. So I don't know in what form. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. I've said, I finished my duties January 12th. Our oldest son's pickup truck is there in the garage. I'm going to get in that pickup truck, and I'm driving east, and then I'm going to figure it out from there. So I don't know what I'm doing next, but that'll be a whole new adventure, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things that I've heard just in speaking to other people is how impressed people are with your humility. So I think that a lot of people are expecting maybe a future run for president or in some form of
I'm just trying to
politics.
survive the week. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I would say that's not where I intend to go. That's not where I'm planning to go. But what I've learned also in life is you never say never, and so we'll see, I guess, is the answer. You take every day a day at a time, knowing you can't do anything about yesterday, and knowing you don't yet own tomorrow. The day you got's the day you got, and that's why this whole notion of running the race that you might obtain the prize, or the Bible says, be hot, cold, but not lukewarm, of engaging whatever it is that's before us, whether you're a school teacher, Dr. Martin Luther King talked about, then be the best school teacher you can be. If you're a janitor, be the best janitor you can be. Whatever it is that's before you, do it earnestly. And I think that if you do that, then, you may not know exactly where those things will lead, but they're going to lead to good places, and we'll see what comes next for me on that front.
Well, that's good advice, definitely, for anyone. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Rhonda Rawlings for 107.3 Jams.